Revenge is best served cold. For Malik Trent, he loved it frozen, with blood and death. How long does a man wait to get even with his cheating wife? A week, 3 weeks, or maybe 20 long years? I must warn you, this isn't just a story about betrayal. It's a story about how love, when poisoned by hate, can become the most dangerous weapon of all. Brace yourselves for the story of Malik, a loving husband and devoted father that set the bar for revenge. A revenge that turned an anniversary dinner into a gruesome murder scene. Ask yourself, what lengths will a man go to pay back his cheating wife? A murder? 2, 3. Can a man kill his own child as payback for his wife's affairs? Malik's revenge wasn't just about his wife's betrayal. It became a mission to destroy everything she loved, even their innocent children. What he did will leave you questioning the limits of human cruelty. Welcome to another edition of True Crime Family Stories. Today we'll be narrating the story of Malik Trent, a man who would wait patiently to pay back his cheating wife and ended up destroying the very thing he was so passionate about: his family. Malik Trent and Chantel Johnson seemed like the embodiment of love at first sight. Their friends often admired how perfectly aligned their lives appeared. Chantel, an ambitious accountant with a sharp mind and big dreams, and Malik, a driven entrepreneur who seemed bent on worshiping Chantel and having a family with her. Together, they had built a life that many envied. Malik and Chantel met during their college years at Garrison University, both full of dreams of greatness. Malik was the star of the football team, known for his charisma and innovative ideas. Chantel, meanwhile, was pursuing a degree in marketing and had an undeniable presence that turned heads wherever she went. The two first crossed paths at a campus party, where Malik's charm and Chantel's intelligence formed an instant connection. Malik was told countlessly that Chantel was out of his league, but he wasn't a man that took no for an answer. He liked Chantel, and he wanted her to be his wife. It didn't matter if he hated hanging out in her favorite spot or attending the same church. He forced himself to fit into her circle. Malik did everything to make her see him, and finally, she did. Their courtship was swift but intense. Late-night study sessions turned into coffee dates, and before long they were inseparable. They shared dreams of building a future together, discussing plans for a family and careers that would make their parents proud. Shortly after college, they tied the knot, and Chantel finally settled with Malik, despite many thinking he wasn't in her class. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. Chantel had a classmate, Jordan, who had always lingered in her life. Jordan was everything Malik wasn't: rich, intense, and unpredictable. They had a fling many years ago as freshmen, but it didn't last. Malik felt threatened by Jordan's presence, but Chantel often assured him he was nothing. But while Chantel loved Malik's stability, she couldn't deny the spark she felt whenever Jordan was around. Still, she chose Malik, telling herself that he was the safer, wiser choice for her future. Years passed, and Chantel and Malik worked tirelessly to build the life they'd always envisioned. Chantel climbed the corporate ladder while Malik grew his small business. But somewhere along the way, the love that had once burned so brightly began to flicker. Chantel's growing success came with a price: long hours at the office and endless travel. She justified her absence by reminding Malik that she was providing for their family. Meanwhile, Malik's business was thriving too, and he loved and supported his wife in any and every form that he could. It was during this period of emotional distance that Chantel's past reemerged in the form of Jordan. Now a creative director at her company, Jordan exuded the same carefree confidence that had once captivated Chantel. Working together on campaign meant long hours and late nights, and Chantel couldn't ignore the old feelings bubbling to the surface. Jordan's presence awakened something dormant in Chantel, a longing for excitement and passion that her marriage no longer provided. At first, she dismissed these feelings as harmless nostalgia, but as weeks turned into months, their interactions grew more personal. Jordan seemed to understand her frustrations in a way Malik never had. One night, after a particularly grueling day, Chantel and Jordan found themselves alone in the office. The kiss was electric. It was a collision of suppressed desires and unresolved emotions. It was a fleeting moment, but it ignited a chain of events that would forever alter the trajectory of Chantel's life. The affair began cautiously, with stolen glances and secret rendezvous. Chantel told herself it was just a phase, a way to reclaim a part of herself she had lost. But as the weeks turned into months, the line between fantasy and reality was hard to differentiate. Malik remained oblivious, consumed by his own responsibilities and devotion to his wife. He noticed Chantel's occasional distractedness, but attributed it to stress. Chantel hated herself for what she was doing, but couldn't bring herself to end it. Jordan made her feel alive in a way she hadn't felt in years. For months, Chantel's double life grew increasingly difficult to maintain. At home, she was the devoted wife, but every stolen moment with Jordan left her feeling both exhilarated and consumed by guilt. Malik had always trusted Chantel implicitly, never doubting her commitment to their family. Yet even he began to notice subtle changes. Her late nights at the office, the distant look in her eyes during dinner, the way she seemed to avoid his touch. For the months that followed, Chantel's connection with Malik suffered while her affair with Jordan continued. At home, Malik's instincts told him something was off. Though Chantel insisted everything was fine, her behavior was becoming increasingly erratic. She was more secretive than ever, guarding her phone and frequently stepping out for unexplained errands. One evening, Malik decided to surprise Chantel by picking her up from work. It was something he hadn't done in years, and he hoped it might rekindle some of the closeness they had lost. When he arrived at her office, Chantel was nowhere to be found. Her assistant mentioned that she had left early for a meeting, but something about her tone seemed off. Malik thanked her and returned to his car. As he drove home, he couldn't shake the feeling that Chantel was hiding something. For the first time, he began to question the foundation of their marriage. Malik always had a knack for control. Be it his career, his home, his life. He was the man who turned heads with his quiet confidence, the one who made everything look effortless. But even he couldn't have prepared for the moment he discovered Chantel's betrayal. It took months for him to finally find out his wife's infidelity. He'd been sex-starved for weeks, and nothing he did ever seemed to please her. Chantel, who was once loving and sweet, had turned cold and distant, and Malik blamed himself for her sudden change in behavior. He believed that he had to do better, to impress her more and to make her happy. It took a pizza delivery one evening for Malik to find out his wife's infidelity. A delivery man had arrived at their home on a rainy evening, and Malik got the door. But the delivery was for his wife, and it was from none other than Jordan Miles, her old flame. He didn't confront her. No. Instead, Malik decided to wait. Chantel had no idea he knew, and he used that to his advantage. Her late night now made sense, and her sudden aversion to his touch now became clearer. Chantel was getting gifts. Bracelets, earrings, shoes, random ice cream delivered to their door. Malik waited for her to tell him. He played cool and loved her with all he had. But neither did she confess nor stop the affair. A few weeks after his discovery of her infidelity, Malik saw a pregnancy test strip in her car. She was pregnant. It took her 3 weeks to announce her pregnancy, and Malik's suspicions solidified. This child wasn't his. "Are you happy?" she'd asked him that night as they had dinner and she announced her pregnancy. "Of course, Chantel. A child is always a blessing," Malik replied. And with those words, Malik swore to make her pay. But Malik had no intention of paying her back in her own coin. No, he had a different currency altogether in mind. For the next 18 years, Malik played his role flawlessly. He was the doting husband, the attentive father. To Chantel, he seemed to have forgiven whatever invisible rift had formed between them. Her secret affair with Jordan had ended on a bitter note when she picked her family over him, deciding to keep the child as Malik's and hide the truth forever from both men. Malik Trent was born into the most loving family a child could ask for. On his naming day, Malik gave a new car to Chantel, thanking her for bringing such a beautiful being into his life. Chantel was pleased. Her husband still loved her. He adored her son. She hadn't ruined her marriage, and perhaps this child was the glue that would bind their rocky love life. Andre grew up being loved and doted on by Malik. To Andre, his father was everything a father should be. He was present, supportive, loving, and always there. But inside, Malik seethed. Every time he looked at Andre, he saw Jordan. Every laugh, every smile, every milestone was a reminder of the betrayal Malik couldn't forgive. It started subtly, with meals. Andre was just a toddler when Malik began adding small amounts of thallium to his food. Nothing noticeable, nothing that would raise suspicion. It was slow, methodical, just enough to weaken the boy over time. As Andre grew older, his health became a constant concern. Chantel scheduled several appointments with skilled doctors to get him diagnosed, but Malik always volunteered and would never take Andre to these appointments. When the symptoms became worrisome, he'd stop the thallium dosage, only to resume a few years later. Chantel blamed herself, believing it was some genetic problem she had passed on to her child. She tried to find out if Jordan had any such illnesses, but then she couldn't risk letting him find out about their child either. Malik, the ever-supportive husband, comforted her through her tears during Andre's sick spells. "Don't blame yourself," he'd whisper, holding her close. "We'll do whatever it takes to make our son better." But Malik had no intention of making Andre better. By the time Andre turned 16, his body was frail, and he'd gone from a healthy boy to a shadow of himself, and that was when Malik escalated his cruelty. Andre was a handsome boy despite all his ill health. He had black hair, flawless tanned skin, and such innocence that Malik found himself drawn to him. And that was when the abuse began. Malik had never thought he was attracted to another man, let alone a 16-year-old boy. But one day of running into Andre, sleeping on his bed with nothing but briefs, brought an image into his head that he couldn't rid. He had to have him. At first, Malik told himself it was because he wanted to punish Andre for his mother's infidelity. And later, he convinced himself that Andre had to pay for living under his roof and having his needs met when he wasn't really his child. It didn't matter what lie Malik told himself. Nothing would justify his monstrous actions. The abuse began subtly, masked as discipline. He always said he had to punish Andre. Malik knew how to manipulate, how to bend Andre's will without breaking him entirely. At first, it was verbal comments that chipped away at the boy's self-esteem. Something about his poor grades, or his introverted nature, or his sickness even. Chantel was too busy at work. She'd gotten a promotion and was now the regional manager of her office. Long hours at work meant that Andre had more time alone with Malik, and Malik always had his way. Andre, weakened by years of illness and desperate to please his father, endured in silence. He had no one to turn to, no one who could understand the nightmare he lived every day. Days turned into weeks and then months. For one whole year, Malik molested Andre each night before he went to bed. Chantel thought nothing of it. She was grateful of the perceived bond between father and son, and glad that Malik never suspected the paternity of the boy. But little did she know that her little boy was tortured each night, and during the day, he was too sick to do anything but sleep and go to school. Andre had fought him off the first few days, but Malik knew just how to silence him. Chantel was so happy, so content, so fulfilled with her job and family. This happiness was the weapon that Malik used to cripple Andre for good. One night before he went to bed, he got into Andre's room as usual, and after the deed, he looked into the boy's eyes. "You are not my son. Your mother got knocked up and brought you to me. If she finds out that I know this, she will leave, and so will you." Andre believed that this would be him stealing his mother's happiness. He had a perfect family that loved him and provided everything that he needed. He didn't want to spoil that. He was manipulated to believe that his freedom and peace was the price he had to pay to keep the family together. Malik was satisfied. He'd found pleasure in Andre, and this itself opened him to a world of excitement he never knew existed. To the world, his family was still perfect. He had Andre tightly under his control, and Chantel loved him even more for being such a kind father. When Chantel told Malik she was pregnant again, he was shocked. After everything, after years of carefully orchestrating his revenge, this was not part of the plan. But Malik didn't let his mask slip. Months passed, and finally, Tasha was born. A healthy, cheerful baby girl who captured Malik's heart in a way he hadn't anticipated. She was different. She was his. In her, he saw a second chance, a glimmer of hope amid the storm of his hatred. For the first time, Malik considered letting go of his plan. Perhaps he could forgive Chantel, focus on Tasha, and move forward. But every time he saw Andre, sickly, fragile, and bearing the face of the man who had ruined everything, his resolve hardened. Malik decided it was time to end the game. It happened on Andre's 17th birthday. Addicted to the abuse, Andre had grown silent. He had such powerful resentment for his father that he wanted to expose him. But each time he saw how happy his mother was, his heart softened, and he decided that this was the small price he had to pay to keep her happy. It was the evening after the celebration. Andre had some friends from school, and Chantel invited some relatives and colleagues over. Jordan had been invited. Seeing him sitting down at lunch with his family made Malik realize how unforgivable their sin was. He was wrong. He couldn't ever live with this. In a few hours, all the guests left, and the family finally settled at the dining room to cut the cake. But before this could happen, Malik suggested that Andre should take a photo on the balcony with him. A father and son moment of togetherness. Chantel, holding Tasha, smiled brightly. As Malik left, she sighed in relief. She had a happy family. Malik loved Andre too much to ever find out her secret. She was safe. Her secret was safe. When they got to the balcony, Andre knew at once that something was wrong. He could tell that his father didn't want a photo from him. But never would he have imagined what Malik had planned out. As he led him to the balcony, he held his face tenderly, and for a second Andre could see the hate in his eyes. He could see the murderous intent. But it was too late. Andre's scream filled the air seconds after. Chantel, alarmed by the noise, rushed to the balcony and looked down, only to see Andre's broken body on the ground below. Malik, feigning shock and grief, dialed 911 as he reported the tragedy. In the days that followed, Malik played the role of the grieving father, comforting Chantel as she wept for her son who fainted due to his sickness and fell off the balcony. Family, friends, colleagues offered condolences and support. Malik wouldn't eat. He lost interest at work, and Chantel had to constantly console him that everything would be fine. Malik was so perfect in his act that no one suspected a thing. As months turned into years, Malik raised Tasha with the same care and attention he had once given Andre. She became the light of his life, the only person he truly cared for. But his hatred for Chantel never ceased. He couldn't forgive her betrayal, couldn't forget the years of pain she had caused him. Malik knew he needed closure, and for him, closure meant total destruction. Chantel had never truly gotten over Andre. She grieved a little too long, and Malik couldn't help but think this was because the child had been Jordan's. It was on one night after he'd made love to Chantel and cuddled beside her that he decided to kick off his plan. He suggested a reunion. For their coming anniversary, he wanted both his and her family over. He wanted all their old school friends over too. Chantel was touched by his offer, thinking he wanted a grand show of his love for her. On that evening, Malik bought her flowers, a new dress, and a pair of the same earrings that Jordan had gifted her many years ago. Chantel, on seeing the earrings, couldn't help but feel a chill run down her spine. But she couldn't ruin the evening with her anxiety. Malik had a small family, just his mother, who had raised him alone, and his brother, Tony. Chantel's family was bigger, more wealthy, and they arrived in their numbers. Chantel's parents and her two siblings, as well as some cousins, came for the anniversary night. But the most important guest was Jordan, and as he arrived, Malik welcomed the man himself. "This will be a memorable night," Malik said. But little did Jordan know that he meant his words in the most cold and sinister way. The evening started cordially, with Malik serving wine and engaging in polite conversation with their families. Tasha had been missing all evening, but no one thought anything of it. Tasha was quiet, and Chantel assumed that she'd gone to bed earlier when she was worn out from playing and acting polite all day. After all, today was an adult night. Jordan loved the wine, and in no time he was already drunk and babbling. Chantel was very uncomfortable, and she quickly tried to get him home. But Malik offered that he should go upstairs and sleep the wine off until he could drive home safely. But that little trip to the guest room led to a murder he'd planned all day. Tasha was in the guest room, gagged and shackled to the bedpost. As soon as Jordan saw her, he tried to scream, but Malik had a shotgun right at his face. "A word and you'll die," he sneered. Jordan knew at once what this was about. He knew that Malik had found out about his affair, and without being asked, he began to apologize. But Malik promised to forgive him on one condition, that he should sleep with Tasha. Tasha was barely 9 years old, and she was helplessly lying on the bed. Jordan refused, but Malik promised him a gruesome death. Eager to get out of this alive, Jordan did as told and took young Tasha against her will and despite her struggles. But as soon as Jordan was done, Malik smiled and a gunshot rang through the entire building. Chantel came upstairs at once. She had felt it in her guts. From the diamond earrings that night to the wine and Malik's sudden fascination with having her family over, she'd felt something strange in her guts, and her fears were confirmed. As she opened the door, she was greeted by a scene from her worst nightmares. Jordan's lifeless body lay next to Tasha, who was hurtled in the corner, trembling and broken. "Malik!" she screamed, her voice raw with horror. "What have you done?" Malik turned to her. His expression remained calm, almost serene. He waited until her entire family and his were at the doorway, horrified and begging him to spare Tasha. But he already had his gun on the little girl's head, and he pulled the trigger. Chantel screeched and ran to Tasha's body that had fallen on Jordan's naked form. Malik smirked. He could see his own mother calling 911, but he wasn't remorseful. He gave a short story of Chantel's infidelity, confessed to poisoning Andre and pushing him off the balcony. Then he waited to hear the sirens from outside before he raised the shotgun to his own head and pulled the trigger. Chantel was left there, kneeling in the blood of her daughter, her husband, and her lover. And in that moment she realized the monster Malik Trent was. So if you're still wondering how far a scorned man can go, here's your answer. 3 murders, sodomy, and 2.5 decades of hate. Chantel sought therapy, but did she ever recover from some gruesome encounter? No one knows. This story of Malik Trent is a disturbing journey into the depths of vengeance and betrayal. It begins with a seemingly perfect marriage, but over time, bitterness, jealousy, and a warped sense of justice turn love into a dark and destructive force. Malik's transformation from a devoted husband and father into a cold-blooded murderer demonstrates just how deeply betrayal can warp a person's sense of morality. The cruelty of Malik's revenge is unfathomable. What begins with the pain of his wife's infidelity escalates into a catastrophic plan for retribution, a scheme that extends beyond his wife to destroy the very fabric of their family. He doesn't just want to punish Chantel, he wants to obliterate everything she holds dear. The deaths of their child and Chantel's former lover are coldly calculated steps in Malik's ruthless campaign of revenge. The story is a haunting reminder that sometimes those closest to us harbor darkness within them, and betrayal, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant, can ignite a chain reaction that shatters lives in the most unimaginable ways. Malik's descent into madness questions the limits of human cruelty and asks whether a person's worst actions can truly be blamed solely on their hurt, or whether darkness always lurks beneath the surface, waiting for a trigger. This story leaves us with deep and unsettling questions. How far can love turn into hate? How much pain can a single betrayal cause? And ultimately, can a person ever truly escape the monster that lives inside them, waiting for the right moment to strike? Thank you for tuning in. If you'd like to catch up on more chilling true crime stories, kindly subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to hit the notification bell to ensure you never miss a new story.